My sister ridiculed me in front of 43 guests, toasting my failure at her engagement dinner. So, I cancelled the $10,000 wedding venue, which was booked under my name. I'm Noah, 31 years old. I've never quite fit in with my family, not in the way you'd expect a son or brother to. On paper, everything looks fine. I have a solid IT job, I own my condo, and I'm generally polite, presentable, and reliable when it counts. But in my family, reliable just meant I was someone they could burden with tasks without ever offering a word of thanks. It took me most of my adult life to realize that my family barely noticed me. I was either the invisible problem solver, the butt of their jokes, or the emergency backup plan. Never the son they bragged about, never the brother they truly cherished. This was especially true for my sister, Noah, who's 28. I swear she was born with an aura that makes every room revolve around her. She's one of those people whose laughter is so infectious. Everyone wants to join in, even if there's nothing funny happening. She's smart, beautiful, confident, and just manipulative enough to stay 3 steps ahead, all while appearing to be the injured party. Growing up, her flair for drama became her primary weapon. I was always the convenient scapegoat. If something went missing, I'd retrieve it. If she failed a test, I'd cover for her. If she felt insecure, it was because I'd supposedly bragged too much about getting a part-time job in high school. I didn't brag. I just mentioned it once at dinner, she cried, and I ended up grounded. I'd hoped that, as adults, things would settle down. I tried to remain supportive, despite years of bad blood. When she dropped out of college after 2 semesters, I helped her with her resume. When she wanted to move into a nicer apartment with her boyfriend, now her fiancé, guess who co-signed the lease? And when she announced her engagement last year, expressing a desire for a family-focused wedding, I volunteered to help however I could, because that's my nature. I help, even if I don't get a thank you. Even if they secretly tease me for still driving a 10-year-old car. Even if they don't want me at the table but expect me to set it. Her engagement dinner was at one of those trendy restaurants, dimly lit, with fake exposed brick that somehow manages to look both rustic and chic. I'd helped her secure the wedding venue, a ridiculous lakefront property that required a $10,000 non-refundable deposit. She asked me to put it in my name because her credit wasn't great, promising to repay me within a month. That was 6 weeks ago, and not a cent had appeared. I kept telling myself she'd get around to it. Maybe, just maybe, this dinner would be a fresh start for us. Perhaps she'd even thank me in front of everyone. Instead, I was blindsided. We were halfway through dinner. The servers had just brought out the main course, an expensive chicken dish with an unpronounceable name, when Noah stood up, champagne glass in hand. She smiled first at her fiancé, then at our parents, and finally surveyed the room. Everyone leaned in, expecting something heartfelt. I leaned in too, hoping my fiancé, she exclaimed, her voice sparkling. You were the best decision I ever made, but tonight, I want to thank someone who showed me exactly what not to do. Someone who reminds me every day what settling looks like. She locked eyes with me and smirked. Let's all raise a glass to my big brother, Noah. Thanks for being the blueprint of what not to become. For a split second, I thought she was joking some awkward, twisted inside joke, but then the room erupted in laughter. Our uncle applauded. Our mother chuckled behind her wineglass. Even our father grinned and mumbled something like, well, she's not wrong. Just like that, I froze. I didn't say a word, didn't even blink. My hands remained in my lap as everyone toasted around me, as if I wasn't even there. My cousin Lena, one of the few family members who'd always been kind to me, caught my eye. She offered a tight-lipped, sympathetic smile, but said nothing else. I drank my water, pushed back my chair, and excused myself, claiming I wasn't feeling well. No one stopped me. No one even asked if I was okay. I left before dessert was served. The drive home was silent, not emotionally, no. My mind buzzed with memories, insults, and echoing laughter. But physically, all I heard was the hum of the tires and the click of the blinker as I turned again, and pulled into my parking garage. That night, I stared at the ceiling. I thought about how many times I'd forgiven her, how many times I'd promised myself that this time would be different. Maybe if I kept showing up, supporting her and enduring the rudeness, she would eventually notice me. She would appreciate me. But now I understood. She didn't need to yell. She didn't respect me. She could accomplish it with a smirk and a toast. That's when it hit me. My deposit, the $10,000 venue deposit, still in my name, recorded in my bank's pending transactions. I opened my laptop, logged in, and read the cancellation policy twice. Then I clicked cancel. There was no warning, no refund to her card because it didn't exist. It was all me. I slumped back in my chair. My heart wasn't racing. It wasn't angry anymore. It simply felt calm. The first text message arrived at 7:30 the next morning, then another, then a phone call, then 3 missed calls, then a voicemail. From Noah screaming about a mix-up. How could this happen? Do you even know what you've done? I knew exactly what I had done, and I wasn't even close to being finished. I let the phone vibrate itself silent. I didn't respond. Not yet. I made myself a cup of coffee, watered the plants on my balcony, and sat down to eat breakfast. For the first time in what felt like forever, something about not being someone's doormat made meals taste better. But my peace didn't last long. By 10 a.m. my mother had called. When I didn't answer, she texted, "Noah, please pick up. Your sister is in tears. What you did was cruel, so unnecessary. Why did you do this? Are you okay?" Just the implication that I had done something wrong. I deleted the message. A few minutes later, more texts arrived, this time from Noah herself, multiple messages, stacked in a row, like a live-tweeted tantrum. "Noah, what is wrong with you? Noah, you've ruined everything. Noah, you knew we needed that venue. I told everyone about it. Noah, you need to fix this today. Noah, I can't believe you'd sabotage your own sister simply because you can't bear to see me happy." There it was. The narrative shifted. I wasn't the target of a public insult. I was the jealous saboteur. Classic Noah that afternoon. My cousin Lena called. I picked up. She sounded nervous. "Hey, I'm just checking in. That toast last night, yeah, it wasn't cool. I wanted to say something. I just ... You didn't," I said. Not cruelly, not sharply, just the truth. "I know. I'm sorry. I felt like if I did, it would have turned into a whole thing. And it should have turned into something," I interjected. "Maybe if someone stood up to her once in her life, we wouldn't be here." She was silent for a moment. Then, "Is it true you cancelled the venue?" "Wow," she remarked, in a tone I couldn't quite decipher, half concern. "She's losing her mind right now, screaming at your parents, blaming everyone. Her fiancé left their place this morning and hasn't come back." I didn't react to that. "You know they were counting on that venue for the engagement photos, right?" she added. "They booked a whole photo shoot around it this weekend." "Then I hope they brought a tripod," I replied, sipping my coffee. There was another long silence. Then Lena lowered her voice and whispered, "I know I didn't say anything last night, but I see you, Noah, I really do." I didn't speak for a moment. Then, "Thanks." When I hung up, the silence that followed wasn't empty. It was filled with everything I'd been holding in for years. I remembered Noah getting caught sneaking out of high school and blaming me for giving her the idea. I remembered our family vacation when she dropped her phone in the ocean, and my parents forced me to pay for its replacement. I remembered how, when I moved into my first apartment, she declared it smelled like failure, then invited her friends over without asking, and trashed the place. I kept giving, but not anymore. The next escalation occurred that evening. This time, it was Dad. He rarely got involved unless money was on the line, so I knew what his call was about before I answered. "Noah," he said, his tone guarded. "This thing with the venue, what's going on?" "Noah says you just cancelled it out of spite," I replied. "Did she tell you what she said about me at her toast?" He paused. "Of course. She was joking. You're too sensitive." There it was. The family refrain, like a gaslighting gospel. "You think it's a joke to tell a room full of people that your brother is a cautionary tale?" I inquired. My tone is calm as a lake before a storm. "She didn't mean it that way. But she did mean for me to put $10,000 on the line without a contract. And she did mean to use me as a punchline. So no, Dad, I don't think I'm going to fix it." "She's your sister," he said, as if the term carried more weight than it did. "She's a grown woman," I stated, "and I'm not her safety net anymore." He exhaled deeply, as if I were the one draining him. "You'll regret this, Noah. Families stick together." "Funny," I said. "Mine never did." I hung up that night. I received an email from the venue, confirming the cancellation and the reimbursement process. It was refunded to my account because it was my deposit. Seeing that confirmation didn't make me joyful or smug. It simply made me feel clear for the first time in years. I started to wonder if this was the end of it. Maybe they'd just leave me alone and figure things out on their own. It was 9:43 p.m. when I heard a knock at my door. I opened it, and there she was, disheveled, no makeup, hair pulled back, eyes red and swollen, but she still had that faint smirk, as if she knew she was going to win. "Can I come in?" she asked. I didn't answer. She stepped forward anyway. What she said next made my stomach churn. "Noah, I need you to give me the money back." I already told people the wedding's still happening at the lakefront venue. We can rebook it. You don't have to be petty. I blinked. Petty? That's when I understood. She didn't come to apologize. She still didn't grasp the situation. She came to collect, and I was no longer hers to collect from. But before I could say anything, or even draw a breath to respond, she made another mistake. She glanced around my apartment, wrinkled her nose, and said, "You really haven't redecorated since college, huh?" I smiled. Carefully and deliberately, I reached for the doorknob. "Noah," she replied, her gaze widening. "Don't do this." I opened the door, but before I closed it, I uttered 6 words I'd been waiting my entire life to say. "You taught me exactly what to be." Then I closed the door in her face. I stood there for a moment, my hand still resting on the doorknob, staring at the wood grain as if it held answers. I almost expected her to pound on the door again, to yell, cry, and negotiate, but she didn't. Instead, I heard the crisp click of her heels against the hallway tile, followed by the faint echo of her footsteps as she walked away. Or so I thought. About 10 minutes later, my phone lit up again. First my mother texted me, then my father, and finally, a number I didn't recognize. Jordan, Noah's fiancé. He called from an unknown number. "We need to talk." I stared at the message for a moment. Jordan and I had only spoken once or twice since the engagement. Both times were superficial. He always seemed like a good guy. Not a terrible person, but not someone who thought for himself. Noah had him wrapped around her finger. I used to think so. Anyway, more out of curiosity than anything, I responded. "About what?" He replied almost immediately. "What exactly happened at the venue?" "She said anything about you last night." I didn't laugh. "I just wanted you to know that last line touched me differently." I responded, "You're engaged to her. Why are you texting me?" He said, "Because I believe I am about to make the biggest mistake of my life." I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I wasn't sure where this was headed. And I wasn't ready to become someone else's therapist just because my sister couldn't keep her ego in check. By the next morning, however, it was clear that Noah had escalated the situation. She shared a lengthy, overly filtered photo of herself and Jordan on Instagram with a caption so sweet it might have been coated in syrup. "Can't let jealousy steal our joy." Some people try to tear others down just because they're miserable. But real love rises above. The comments were predictable. Haters gonna hate, and you're glowing. And ignore the negativity. Babe, you're amazing. I didn't comment. I didn't even open the post directly. I just saw the preview, which someone else emailed to me. Of course, their message read, "She's spinning the whole story." I'm sorry, this is getting gross. Yes, it was. Because the story was being rewritten in real time. I wasn't just the brother who cancelled the deposit. I was the spiteful villain out to ruin his baby sister's happiness. The truth is, she knew. I wouldn't defend myself online. She knew I wasn't the type to air dirty laundry on social media. That wasn't my style. But perhaps that's why she believed she could get away with it. She made a mistake there because she didn't realize, and no one else did, that I had something she was unaware of. Something I'd kept out of habit, not expecting to ever use it. When I helped her secure the venue, she was too lazy to complete the vendor paperwork, so I did it. And when they asked for the event's key contact, I put myself, because I was the one who paid, was in charge of correspondence, and received every email, document, and signed agreement right to my inbox, including the contract PDF and Noah's signed acknowledgement. It wasn't legally binding, not a loan or anything, but she signed a paper agreeing to be responsible for the reimbursement of all booking-related expenditures. What's the kicker? The contract included a clause that explicitly stated that any willful misrepresentation of the event by the client that causes public disparagement or reputational harm to the venue or its representatives could result in not only cancellation but also a blacklist from all affiliated event spaces under that management company. Translation: she could kiss her entire backup list goodbye. So no, I didn't intend to go public, but I didn't have to be quiet either. First, I forwarded Jordan the original signed agreement. I didn't add any remark, only the document. Several hours later, he responded. He wrote, "So she lied to me, said you never paid, said you made it all up to embarrass her. I'm starting to realize I don't actually know who I'm marrying." I just said, "Then it's time you decide who you are without her." The second thing I did was much more subtle. I made a stealth phone call to the venue coordinator, Gil, who had been very pleasant during our brief conversations. I told her that I had cancelled the reservation but that I was concerned my sister would try to rebook under a different name, using one of her friends or family as the applicant. Jill exhaled and responded, That wouldn't be the first time someone's tried that, but thank you for the heads up. We'll flag the name and the event type, we've got eyes. Finally, the third item I waited for, because the next explosion wasn't mine to start. I knew what was coming. 3 days later it landed. A voicemail from my mother, frantic and confused. Noah, what did you do? Noah is losing it. She says the venue blacklisted her. She can't get anyone to book her now. What happened? You need to call me. This has gone too far. I didn't call. They felt humiliated. No one called when it was me. Nobody had stood up when I was the punchline. Nobody had cared as I sat at the table, watching everyone laugh at me as if I were a prop in my sister's comedy routine. So no, I was not interested in damage control, and I was absolutely not done, because there was still one more card to play. Noah was completely unprepared for what happened next, the thing that would make everyone, including her, look at me differently, and it was already in motion. They just didn't realize it yet. I waited, not out of spite, but for strategic reasons. See, there's a distinction between vengeance and pettiness. Pettiness is impulsive, it reacts. Real revenge, however, is quiet, patient. It waits for the right moment to land, not when people anticipate it, but when they truly need you. That's when it hits hardest. Noah was about to learn her lesson in full stereo sound. I didn't answer any of their calls, not Mum, not Dad, and certainly not Noah, who was by this point leaving voicemails ranging from sorrowful to venomous, depending on how desperate she felt. 1 minute it was, Noah, I'm sorry. Okay, I didn't mean it like that. Let's just move on.